Hi, kids. So I'm going to just go over some vocabulary with you for chapter 2. This is positive integer. Oh, let's make sure we zoom that in so you can see that nice and close up. Positive integer, and that is any integer that is greater than 0. So here we have 0. These are going to be the positive numbers, and then on the back side, these are the negative numbers. And this is a horizontal line. It's like the horizon when you look at the sunset. It's going down over a lake. You'll see the horizon. You'll see the sunset on the horizon. So horizontal line, this is horizontal. Like if you turned it this way, up and down like this is vertical. So horizontal number line. Okay, origin. The origin is where something begins. So in 5th grade, you learn about Native Americans having origin stories, where their story begins, or where they say their people came from and where their story begins. So origin is always where something begins. So when we look at the origin in math, it's a point where these two axes meet. This is the x-axis and the y-axis. And the origin is 0, 0. It's where it all begins. You're going to start your point when you're going to plot a point. You're going to start it at 0, 0, right here in the middle. And then we would either, like if we went positive 3, we'd go up 3. And then positive 3 again, you'd go up this way. But we start at the origin in the middle. Chapter 3 is all about rational numbers. This is a word that will be on the test, so make sure you understand this by the end of chapter 3. A rational number is any number that can be written as a ratio, a over b, or a fraction. So it could be even a whole number, like the number 1 can still be written as a fraction, 1 over 1. So any number that can be written as a fraction, a ratio, where a and b are integers, which means they're both positive or negative numbers. Could be any negative or any positive. But b, the bottom number, the denominator, does not equal 0. It doesn't make sense for a bottom number to equal 0, because what does a denominator mean? It means how many pieces you have. So if you have a pie and it's not cut, you have one whole piece of pie. If you cut it in half, you have 2 pieces of pie. So it's the number of pieces something is cut into. If you have 0 on the bottom, that would be like having no pie at all. And it doesn't make sense, because then what would the top number be for? So a rational number does not have a 0 on the bottom, on the denominator. Some examples of rational numbers would be 6 or 6 over 1. So 6 is a rational number because it can be written as a fraction. This is 75 hundredths, which we could do 75 over 100 and simplify it down to 3/4. And then we have a mixed number here, and this has a negative sign in front of it, but this mixed number, could also be written as negative 7/3, 3 times 2. So we have 3 pieces in the pie, 2 whole pies. So you have 2 whole pies or 3 pieces, that's 6 pieces plus the 1 you already had, 7. So we have negative 7/3. And those are all rational numbers. Quadrants. The word quadrants. This has to do with the coordinate grid. The 4 regions of the coordinate plane separated by the x and y axis. So this is going to be a quadrant, another quadrant, another quadrant. Each of those are a quadrant. This is quadrant number 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to be learning more about quadrants. We have our x coordinate. Now, an ordered pair, you did learn this in 5th grade, but you might have forgotten it. An ordered pair is 2 numbers next to each other with a comma between them in parentheses, right? That is an ordered pair. So the x coordinate is the one that is first. So when you have an ordered pair, you have an x and a y coordinate. X is the first one. This is the x-axis. So we're going to go over x number of spots. That tells us how far over. It's the first number in the ordered pair. That is the x coordinate. I just showed you, but this is the x-axis. And this right here is our x-axis with our number line that has positive and negative values of the x variable in your coordinate. So x is whatever number. You're probably starting to think, why is there letters in my numbers? Well, those could be any numbers. X just stands for whatever, however far you're going to go to the right or to the left. So x is your first number you're going to work with. And that's how far over we go. That's x. The y coordinate is how far up or down. So in this ordered pair, this 2 is your y coordinate. X was the 3. So here's our x. X went 1, 2, 3, and then the second one you do is y, and that one tells us this is positive 2, so we go up 2. This is your y coordinate. It's the second number in an ordered pair that tells you the distance of how far up or down you move. The y-axis. This is the y-axis. It is a vertical number line. X is your horizontal number line. Y is your vertical number line. Y-axis goes up and down. These are your positive numbers. These are your negative numbers. Opposites. You know what an opposite is, but in math, what we're talking about when we talk about an opposite is how, like, the opposite of a negative 3 would be a positive 3. Opposite of a positive 3 would be a negative 3. So two numbers that are the same distance but in opposite directions from 0 on a number line are considered opposites. So here we have negative 5. The opposite of negative 5 is a positive 5. Opposite of positive 5 is a negative 5. Notice 0. 0's opposite is 0. So it folds right onto itself. So it's opposite. If you were to take this and fold it, 0 would be right here where my hands hit together, and it just folds on itself. So 0's opposite is 0. An ordered pair. So we're backing up to ordered pair a little bit. But ordered pair is your x and y. This is an ordered pair. It's a pair of numbers used to locate a point on a grid. So here's our grid. We have our x and our y as our ordered pair. Our x is 3 here, so we go over 3. Our y is 2, up 2. We're going to be learning a lot more about this week. Line of symmetry. Line of symmetry, probably remember this one from 3rd grade, is that when you have something that will divide something straight down, where both sides are congruent and equal, when you fold on the line of symmetry divides something evenly. So, for example, the letter A, if I write a letter A, you could divide it evenly. It would look the same on both sides. But for a B, if you chopped it in the middle, you'd have humps on one side and straight edge on the other. So that would not be symmetrical. So a line of symmetry is something that will divide an object so that it's the same on both sides of the line of symmetry. A negative integer. This is what we're learning that's new this year, and we're learning how to work with these negative integers. They are the opposite of the positive numbers on the other side. So notice that a negative 1 is larger than a negative 5 or a negative 4, right? So the bigger the negative number, the deeper you're going or the further negative you're going. So when you work with what is greater than another number, you really have to think about this number line when you're thinking about negative numbers, because usually 3 is greater than 2. But when you're talking about negatives, negative 2 is greater than a negative 3. These are the smaller numbers. These are the larger ones. Next, we have integers. Integers are just the whole numbers, a set of whole number and their opposite. So a fraction is not an integer. An integer is a whole number. So it's just your positive whole numbers and your negative whole numbers. We already talked about line of symmetry. Yep, here is a picture of it. Line of symmetry just divides that into two halves that are equal reflections of each other. Coordinate plane, that is this. This is called a coordinate plane. So we talk about the grid positive and negative numbers, this is called a coordinate plane. Plane means something that's flat, and this is a flat surface. This is going to be two-dimensional, because we don't have like a three-dimensional figure. We're just doing boxes and numbers on these x and y coordinates. So it's a two-dimensional plane, flat surface. And then lastly, we do learn a little bit about absolute value this chapter. And absolute value looks like this is a symbol. There's some straight lines wrapped around a number. And the absolute value is the distance of an integer from 0. So absolute value is always positive. You'll never have a negative absolute value, because what it is asking is how many spots is that number away from 0. So the absolute value of a -3 is 3. How many spots? Because it's 3 hops away from 0. The absolute value of a 4 is still a 4, because it's 4 hops from 0. So your answer to an absolute value question will always be positive. Okay, that is the vocabulary that I wanted to go over with you. Thank you for listening.